this Ramadan.
15 after 11 o'clock exactly. It's Wednesday. It's a public holiday in South Africa. It is Freedom Day. But you know what my thoughts are about Freedom Day. I've really let rip and made my thoughts known. Let's put that aside for now and let's concentrate on our show at hand. I have some amazing guests. The first one is Professor Shirley Kokot. She's here to talk to us about gifted children. Professor, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you.
Okay, I was expecting to see you via Zoom, but I see you're not there. Obviously, we've had a bit of problems connecting up with you, but okay, I'm very pleased that I have you on the show. So let's talk about, I think all parents for whatever reason, maybe it's the reflection on themselves as being very intelligent, I don't know, but all parents would like to know that they have gifted children. So, what exactly is a gifted child? And what are the signs that one looks out for to determine whether your child is highly intelligent, is either gifted, or is a prodigy?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, look, I think it's
Okay,
quite accurate
I
to
can't
say.
hear you, Professor. I can't
Oh,
hear you. Let's get them to turn up the volume. All right. Is it Dr. Shirley Kokot or Professor Shirley Kokot?
all right. Can you hear me now?
You're still very faint. Can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
Okay. I think they've just.
Technical, maybe a
All right. All right. Let's just see if we can move forward with this interview. You are very faint, but of course, would you like to then respond to our first question?
Yes. Well, I'll respond to your second one because you asked if I'm doctor or professor. Doctor would be more accurate because I have, since you read my CV, I have retired from UNISA. I'm no longer at the university. So, yes. Okay.
Okay, so you retired. How do you keep busy knowing that you yourself, and I know your children are adults now and leading their own lives, but all three your children were gifted children.
That's right. Yes. So to get back to the question of that, I was going to respond to you by saying that I think it's quite true to say that most children have a talent or gift. So it's quite right that people might think their child is gifted in some or other way. But when we in the academic field talk about a gifted child, that is something quite different. That is not just a child who has a talent or an ability in some or other way. We're talking about something that goes very far beyond the normal concept of, oh, my child is intelligent and so on. So we're talking about children, very rare children. You don't find many of them. There may be 1 or 2% of the population would fall into a gifted category. So these children they have special needs because of their abilities. They need a different kind of education very often. They need emotional support, and they need support to be able to adjust to the social world because they feel very often different from the peer group from a very young age because they are usually intellectually far ahead of the other children. So there are many problems associated by being a gifted child, and I think this is it's not that it's such a fortunate thing to be gifted. It's easier to be a high achiever, a bright, intelligent child who copes well with school and is admired by the peer group and liked by the teachers, then you have everything you need in life. But a gifted child very often struggles at school and in the peer group, and this makes them emotionally vulnerable to all kinds of upset.
So you're saying that a gifted child struggles at school. How is a gifted child, and obviously they would have a problem fitting into peer groups, etc., because I should imagine they need to be stimulated all the time and they get bored very, very easily. Uh, Possibly also the interest would be so vastly different to normal or regular children. uh, Having said that, how does one then make life easier, the transition easier for a gifted child to possibly fit in?
Well, first of all, understanding, adults who understand what they may be experiencing and who understand the state of being gifted, because that's exactly what it is. It's a state of being. You're not only just a gifted child when you go to school in the morning, you're a gifted child 24/7. And so it's misunderstanding and lack of insight into this whole field that can cause a lot of problems if they have parents or teachers or other adults who don't understand this. So I think that the people in their world are very important for helping them adjust to the world, to understand that they may feel different and why they may feel different. Not because they're better in any way, because they're not. They're just a bit different. To be gifted, to be very, very academically able, doesn't make you a better person. It just makes you a little bit different from most of the other people. So understanding is incredibly important.
Carry on. I'm just wondering, you have three children, all three of them were gifted. And how did you cope way back then? They are now young adults and leading their own lives. The one is a clinical psychologist like yourself. The other one is a filmmaker specializing in animation. And your son, I'm very pleased to say, and also to have found this out for the first time, your son Philip is the co-director and headmaster of Radford House. I've heard of Radford House, but never ever realized that it's a specialized school for gifted children in Johannesburg. So I've thrown quite a few questions at you. Number one, how did you as parents realize that your children were different and possibly gifted? And what were the challenges that you faced as parents with your three gifted children?
Okay, well, first of all, it was one of our children who ran into problems at school that alerted me to the fact that something was going on. We knew that the child was very able, but it was a matter of being stressed out at school, being in it. Actually, things went quite well until this child hit a year where the teacher totally failed to understand or see this different kind of ability, and so it was overlooked, and nothing was done to accommodate it. And so the extreme frustration and boredom of a very slow-paced teaching day caused stress, which caused tummy aches, which caused a whole lot of actual, huge problems and concern in the family. And then we did discover ways that this was the problem. And so that kind of motivated me to study the field of gifted. I was already an educational psychologist. I knew a little bit about it, not that much. So I then did a master's in gifted education and went on working in the field. And that's the same problem. But they have minor problems. it became easier because then by that stage we understood. And yeah, not all gifted children have a lot of problems. Some of them, especially if they have high levels of social adaptability and what we call interpersonal intelligence, sort of one of the emotional intelligences, then they can cope better with an under-stimulating school curriculum because they get such pleasure out of extramural activities and being a leader in their peer group very often. So it depends very much on the individual child. So it would be incorrect to say or think that all gifted children will have problems in school. Some just don't, and without any problems, but not all of them. And this is why it was so important for the parents actually started agitating for Radford House. They wanted a school way back in 1994. They started asking because, especially under the new dispensation, things changed in education, and teachers no longer receive training in gifted child education. So the level of teacher understanding then dropped significantly. And one of the problems we still have is that teachers don't really understand these children. And so it's difficult for being confronted every day, with people who actually expect their expectations are totally foreign to the child. And so that's why the school was founded all those years back, and it's grown from strength to strength. I'm very happy to say that Philip has now, he's taken over the school totally. I've also withdrawn from that. And he runs a very, very successful school.
So, Dr. Kokot, let me understand this. When we talk gifted child, we're not necessarily saying that this child is excelling or excelling way, way above the average right across the board. Would we perhaps, what does a gifted child look like? Does it suggest that this child only excels way above the normal average in certain areas only? That's question number one. And how easy is it to confuse a gifted child with a child who suffers from ADHD or ADD?
Okay. Well, first of all, no, a gifted child doesn't have to be one who achieves hugely across the board. Can be. Some of them do. Some of them don't. Some of them may be particularly gifted in certain areas, and some of them don't even do that well at school. They are hiding because school is understimulating, remember, and so they can't be bothered. And we often say to parents, the children who come out of our schools with these 6, 7, 8 distinctions at the end of the year are not always the gifted ones. The gifted ones have been kind of hiding in the back of the class, sort of, not knowing why they should be bothered with all of this silly stuff that they're supposed to be studying. And so the marks can be not that good, but it's when you meet these children that you realize they have something special that they haven't shown in terms of school achievement. So there are so many gifted children who in fact underachieve as well. So, and there's no one picture I can give you of a gifted child. Each and every one presents differently. They're all different, just like all children. But there are some things they have in common, and which is that they do pick up on concepts very, very easily and from a very early age. They have a very quick grasp of everything, and they have exceptional memories. Not good memories, exceptional memories.
Wow.
So often their language is advanced. They are advanced in a lot of their abilities. And what we also like to say and point out to parents is that don't only look at the performance of the child. Because you can't always tell from that, because a child might be quietly frustrated and bored with his schoolwork. He doesn't want to bother. So it doesn't look as if he's achieving. But it's his interaction with other people, particularly adults. His vocabulary is advanced. Is his understanding and curiosity in the world, is that advanced? Does he want to know everything about everything, or a particular area? And is his understanding notably hugely advanced from other children of his same age? And apart from that, then, look to the emotional indicators. I have not yet met a gifted child who is not extremely emotionally sensitive. So they feel, it's almost as if they have no barrier between themselves and the rest of the world and other people. They pick up on feelings. They will be aware of what's going on in the world. And at the moment, with all the disasters, some of these children can be suffering because they see what's going on. They feel for everybody. They're scared. They're worried. They're sensitive to all the nuances of the horrors that we're experiencing at the moment, but they don't yet have the maturity to really deal with it. So these children are very sensitive, and very often they have other sensory as well, like they can be very sensitive to smell, to touch, to taste, to sounds. It's almost as if their senses are hyper alert, and they pick up everything in the environment. So these are very important indicators of a gifted child as well, which we would use when assessing for gifted. It's not only the result of an IQ test. That is only part of it.
What concerns me, Dr. Kokot, is well and good we have a Radford house, a school specializing for gifted children. What about those children or parents, possibly from underprivileged backgrounds, who don't pick up on the fact or are not even aware of something like gifted children, and just think, oh, my child is a fast learner or an above average child, and then just kind of comforted in the notion that this child is going to sail through school, but don't pick up on the fact that the child is a gifted child. This child then goes to school, is totally understimulated, gets bored, and is there a possibility that he or she would then become a dropout, and their whole life is then wasted?
Well, yes, but it wouldn't only be children from the disadvantaged areas. You can have children coming from very, very, very affluent backgrounds who are in exactly the same position, because they're not recognized. Their abilities are not recognized either at home or at school, and it makes no difference whatsoever. They have every chance of becoming dropouts as much as children in disadvantaged areas. If you look at some of the children, I do believe that some of these incredibly brilliant achievements we have coming out of schools and homes in very disadvantaged areas around South Africa, those children are gifted. And sorry about that. And they are actually overcoming so many obstacles. And so, it's not only are they able, but they've got determination and perseverance, which are such important qualities in life. And I admire those children, I think, the most.
Okay, so then I guess the next big question is parents who suspect that their child might be gifted. Are there any tests? Do you go, do you take your child for the normal IQ test that possibly would indicate that this child is gifted, or are there no such tests? Do you just go for an IQ test, which is way above average? How do you know? How do you determine that this child needs to be in a special school, or the child is gifted and you need to have a special program for him or her?
Okay. Well, that's difficult because there are no special programs. So
Oh,
I often say to parents, why do you want to have this child assessed if you haven't got anything lined up? I usually say that if the child is having problems at school, I listen to the nature of the problems, and also let's do an assessment, because through experience you can kind of tell if a child might be acting out or showing behavioral signs. And that, coming back to your previous question, ADHD and giftedness are very often mistaken. A lot of gifted children are incorrectly diagnosed as being ADHD because they could be impulsive, they speak out, and so on, but it's not. That's a different. You need such an expert to help you deal with that. But anyway, so if you suspect the child is gifted or they're having problems at school and you believe that what the teachers are seeing at school doesn't correlate with what you know of the child at home, then you might need help in having an assessment to be able to explain to the school that, look, actually what you're seeing is the result of this child possibly acting out because of this reason. And in this case, the reason might be it's a gifted child who is not feeling satisfied. So in that case, it does help, though, and this is the difficulty, in finding a psychologist who has a good understanding of giftedness. As I just said, an IQ test doesn't tell you much. It tells you that the child is capable of succeeding at school. It correlates positively with school results, but it doesn't tell you if a child has this extraordinary ability or not. So you need to be able to look at the developmental history. You need to be able to look, as I just said, those emotional indicators and other social indicators and so on, sensory indicators. You need to see, are those all present in the child as well?
okay.
Yeah.
My final two questions to you then. I think right from the outset, you did indicate that no two gifted children are exactly the same. They have different types of intelligences, or they have a gift in a certain area. Having said that, how do they then cope at school? How does Radford then accommodate for 16 different children per class? Are they able to accommodate them and their needs, their intellectual needs? That's question number one. Question number two, undoubtedly, a gifted child grows up being a gifted adult. Do they fit into the world as we know it? And if the child has fallen through the cracks as a dropout, what does their world look like when they reach adulthood?
Okay, that's a lot of questions, but I'll try to address them. First of all, Radford's whole educational approach looks very different to the normal schools. For example, in the primary school, each term the children in that particular class choose a theme democratically that they would like to study. And then the teacher builds all the curriculum skills into that particular theme. And then what the children do are very open-ended, meaning that they can go as far or not quite as far as they like, as long as they meet the objective. One child might be particularly interested and able to cope with one aspect of teamwork, and so they will go way beyond. But another child might not be as interested, being different, but as long as they meet the criteria, they can also get a very good mark. So at Radford, we don't believe that 100% is the top mark you can get. We believe that a particular child might get 150% in an area. We don't want to let one child fly, right up to the moon, and then the other child be disadvantaged because they can't reach the moon, but they get penalized so that even getting to the stars, their mark is lower. It's not such a thing. So we also look at the different ways of being intelligent in class, and the children know about that. And, it's just a different approach. And the children understand. They're very tolerant of each other as well because they understand they are all different, and some haven't got as many gifts in this area as somebody else might have. So that's tolerated, but they work to their strengths. And
Okay. And the issue around the adult growing up as a dropout because your needs were not met or you weren't recognized as a gifted person, what does your world look like once you've reached adulthood?
yes, well, gifted adults, a lot of them have the same problems as they did when they were younger, and many of those still tend to be in the social field because, these are people who can very easily be considered to be a bit weird by everybody else. On the other hand, sometimes the child may be a lot more, but when he might find his passion in life and then is able to focus in on a particular area which really excites him and then can blossom. So it's like we also have these late bloomers who then show fish in life and really can go on to do well. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Kokot, that's all we have time for. I could sit here all day picking your brain. It's such a fascinating subject, but that's all we have time for today. Thank you indeed for your time. Go well, and until the next time. Have a wonderful holiday.
Great. Thank you very much.
11:42 exactly. This is the mid-morning show, and still to come, we are going to be talking with Hassan Noor Mohammed. He is the Deputy Director of the Islamic Dawah Movement, so do stay with us. The line was very bad.
And it was a good interview.
Very, very bad.
So we
Terrible.
have